Hi guys, and welcome to the workshop. Today I want to talk a bit more about the classified PowerShift hub system because firstly I've done a few races on it now, so I have a bit more experience. I've ridden it in all kinds of terrain. I've ridden it in two different style of bikes, basically since February. So I do have quite a few observations regarding it now. But first, a bit of an explanation of what it is. A couple of you pointed out in the previous video that it wasn't very clear what this system actually does. So I'm going to give you a very simplified version of that, so hopefully everybody can understand. So on the outside, this bike appears to have a regular 1x12 drivetrain. And these are used quite commonly these days in various cycling disciplines, from gravel, time trial, road, mountain biking most predominantly. But the problem with here that a lot of people have is the gear range. So usually with traditional setups, you have to do a bit of a compromise. So I like to call or divide the 1x drivetrains into two different sections. So the first variant is what people commonly use on gravel mountain bike, and this is what I call a compensation style drivetrain. So you have a wide range cassette that has same or a very similar range to a double setup. It gives you the same range of gears, but because of this you need to use a smaller chainring, and this is good for simplicity and well, for off-road bikes it's quite sufficient. But the problem with that is because of the small chainring, you do get a drivetrain that is quite a lot less efficient than you would get with a 2x system. And then there's the other type of 1x drivetrain that I like to call the omission style drivetrain, where you just take the big gear, so you essentially only keep the big ring or even increase the ring size, so you only get the fast gears, and you just remove the range that's associated with lower speeds. And this is what we use in time trialing most commonly. But neither of these is really perfect, and the aim of the classified system is to basically merge the benefits of both, with creating as little downside as possible. So one of the advantages of course, the 1x system is the simplicity, chain security, in some places, aerodynamics, because obviously getting rid of the front mech and the little ring cleans up the drivetrain, and it's just simple to use. So what the classified system does is essentially replaces the front derailleur by moving another ratio into the hub. So basically it's all hidden away in an internal construction in the wheel, so it's not in the way, and it still gives you the same gear range like a 2x setup, while having the simplicity of the 1x mechanically. So how does it do that? Basically inside the hub, as I tried to demonstrate in my previous video, you have one reduction ratio. It's not a gearbox like some of you pointed out. It's actually very simple. So the first use case is when the system is actually disengaged. The hub is locked together, it turns 1-to-1 with the cassette, and this is basically like if you were shifted in a big ring and we have all the 12 gears at the back with a regular 1x drivetrain. The clever part comes when you disengage the lock and you are powering the bike through the classified internal planetary gear, one gear, not the gearbox again. This is important because of some other features. So this is a reduction ratio of 0.686, which is very similar to a 2x drivetrain in most cases. I'll get to that in a minute as well. And this enables you to have much lower gears, even though you're not shifting at the front. So this is the main principle. A lot of people have pointed out that a system like this can have more losses when the ratio is unlocked, which is true, but it's nowhere near the range of 8 or 10% like some of you pointed out. That's just wrong. And a lot of people have tried to bash me with this, but really it's just nonsense. Firstly, Classified have provided a lot of data on how they tested the efficiency of it, and it's nowhere near 10% in terms of losses. It's actually more around 2%. But if you put back the big ring in the equation, because of the gear range, you're allowed to use a much bigger chainring while preserving safe ratios. This actually improves the efficiency, so the effect pretty much cancels out. If it was not efficient, it would not be used by Ineos in the time trials where efficiency is most important. So I think that's quite logical there. And also you have the aero savings, etc. So that's pretty much it. Obviously, it's not a perfect system, and I'll get to the downsides a bit later on, but I really like how it works. I'm quite convinced that this is the way to go forward. That's why I also decided to be a classified dealer and have been offering the system for my clients. Actually, the first customer units and also our demo wheelset is arriving pretty soon. So if you're interested, you'll be able to test it out for yourself if you're in the area. So for more information, you can check out my webshop, ronikuba.com, which will be linked below. So now let's go through the parts of the system and how they perform, how do I like them. Well, let me just start with the control unit. So this basically is a wireless system, which is operated by, well, the hub itself obviously is located in the rear wheel, and that is operated by a wireless actuator, which you can control by using a receiver that is connected to a little button. The button itself has a nice positive click, pretty good design, so I like that. It's very similar to my Shimano sprint shifters. So no real issues with that. But I think still this is a bit of a, this shows the relative lack of development in this area. It's a very new system, so you don't get it as neatly integrated as it could possibly be. Of course, Classified is in a sense a competitor to regular drivetrain companies, so I don't know if this can evolve in the future. But as it stands out right now, it has to be an add-on to your existing shift actuators and the shift levers. It's not a problem per se, but it would be much neater if, you know, all the SRAM, Campagnolo, and Shimano brake levers are now wireless. So it would actually theoretically be very easy to pair these to the Classified hub and shift it with the inbuilt buttons. So obviously that I see as a next step. However, I also had the idea that they could just come out with their own left-handed lever that mimics the design of one of these companies and just has the shifter built into it, and you can replace the left lever with that, and it could operate your Shimano or SRAM brake. That will get rid of the issue, because as it stands now, this is the best position I have found for this shift button right here on the top of the hoods, and it's quite good. It's quite easy to access, but it's still a protrusion. So if I just grab onto the lever bodies, which I like to do in the aero position, it's in the way, so that's a bit awkward. But I didn't also want to put it in the drops, because that's not where you can easily access it while climbing, because that's when you would be using it. And I already have the sprint shifters on there, which I really like and would not like to go away. So yeah, this is an area where I could see a bit of improvement, or basically a big improvement. And if this were combined with the legacy drivetrain systems, I think the ultimate version of this would be when this could actually work with the rear mech in kind of a synchro shift mode. So you would not have to think at all about shifting the internal gear. You would just have 24 gears selected for you, like you would get with the front mech. without any intervention. And then we would also be able to get rid of the shift button problem whatsoever, and also get rid of the wireless transmitter system from the through axle. So that would be quite nice, but I think this is still, if it's in development, I can't really say, but that would be my ultimate version of this. But still, it works really well as it is right now. So if you take a double setup, the gearing steps there and the range is predefined by the capacity of the front derailleur, which is usually fixed. So it doesn't matter how much you go up in size, the range is always a certain number of teeth, which as you go to bigger rings, they actually, it's still, for example, with Shimano, it's 16 tooth. So even if you have a 58, it could theoretically shift a 42. But in percentage terms, that's quite a small gap. So the range is not that big. With this system, as it's a ratio in the hub, the ratio is fixed. So the bigger the chainring gets, the more range you get, which also means a big gearing jump, which you have to get used to. But in my case, this allows me to have a 58-40 effective ratio, basically. And that's a huge range because I have a massive gear for descending, a lot faster than I would get otherwise. I have a better chain line at road racing speeds, which helps, and I still have the same climbing gears that I had before. So that for me is a definite improvement in efficiency. Again, if you have your gearing set up right and you have the right ratios, then you don't really need even to use the reduction ratio that much, so that still improves efficiency. So that's one thing. The second thing is that because the shifting is internal, it's absolutely immediate and unshakable. You're just physically not able to have it misshift. It's just so damn good. So you can use this big gearing jump much more liberally, which ultimately I think also improves the efficiency, because a lot of times in races or even in training, you have little short, sharp hills where you would just grind it up, cross-chained, or when there's an attack at the top, you need to either have it cross-chained all the way so you're prepared for that, or it's a compromised situation. And with this, you can just shift. You don't have to worry about that because the chain will not drop. Also, another area which I really like about this is that my nearby climbs are quite long but not really steep. So usually when it happened with traditional systems that if I was in the big ring, I needed to go to the second, third, fourth largest cog. That was my ideal ratio that I like to have, and that's not very efficient. But then if I switched over to the little ring, then I was in the middle of the cassette or even lower. So that's again not a very efficient gear. So with this, I'm in the big ring, of course. I'm in the middle of the cassette, and I'm in the rejection ratio, which is a much more efficient solution. So I use that type of ratio quite a lot. I think it's rather nice. Also, just little silly things like race starts. You start the race, you can start in reduction ratio, so you don't have to go from a standstill to through a massive resistance. And then as the speed goes up, you just shift it back. Again, with front shifting, you always get the chance of drop chain, or you have to start in a big ring and cross chain. So not very convenient either. So it opens up a lot of exciting opportunities for improvement, I think. And you really can recalibrate your riding a little bit, as you don't need to be cautious, I should say, like with front shifting. Having said that, there are a few tiny niggles still. One thing that I was worried about is the rear shifting, because due to the construction of the system, you can't use Shimano or SRAM or Campagnolo cassette. And usually aftermarket cassettes don't really work well. in my experience at least. So when I first tried the 12-speed variant, this is the 1130, I tried it with the Shimano 12-speed chain, and it doesn't work very well at all. Then I realized that it's actually not even described as compatible, so that's the reason why. That's completely my mistake. So then I put on this KMC chain that I had layering around, and the shifting is really, really damn good with this one, apart from 2 locations on the cassette. For some reason I can't have that set up perfectly, so there's one downshift that isn't perfect and one upshift, but still it's an early unit, so probably that will improve over time. I would say it's 99% of the quality of the Shimano shifting, not 100, but I guess that's an area to be improved as well. And then of course there's the KMC chain itself, not my favorite. And the Shimano chain is more efficient. However, I found some replacements in the lineup of YBN. This is a high-end Japanese chain manufacturer that has compatible chains, so it should shift well, unlike Shimano, and it's actually more efficient than both, so that's actually good news. These chains are coming later this week, so I'll be able to try them out on this system. Then there's another unrelated bit of complication. So here on the front I have the 58 tooth Aero Coach Atom chainring, which works really, really well. But for road, I have some rough roads, rough descents on here that have to be tackled at high speed, and there I was worried a bit about chain security. So yeah, for that reason I've also installed their chain guide. However, as it's a non-round ring, it doesn't, always have the amount of protection that you would have with a round ring. So actually I have dropped the chain once in the descent, and it was very awkward to get back on because the chain catcher was already there. So I had to readjust it a bit, make it a bit closer, and since then it's been okay. And also I have adjusted the SLF motion cage to a higher tension, so the chain is not as loose, and also this improved the shifting a bit. So these are the adjustments I had to make. Yeah, it always happens, it's a completely new system, so it's a bit of trial and error, but I do this so you don't have to make the same mistakes, so hopefully that helps. Another thing I've done is that for some reason, with the geometry of this bike and the gearing and the ratios, when I'm towards the upper end of the cassette, so the easier gears, the SLF motion cage was rubbing against the chain, which again never really happened before with any other setup that I had. So I had to take the Dremel to it and remove that part so there is no rub. It's not really visible, but yeah, and I now have a peace of mind that it can't rub, so it can't cost me any watts. So these are my experiences so far. I'm definitely looking forward to putting some more testing in it. I have also ordered the bigger 1134 cassette for this bike because my experience is that really the lowest possible ratio is one that you don't want to be using for too long, obviously because of the added losses of cross-chaining and the internal gear. So I like to avoid that. That's why I ordered the bigger cassette, because back in the beginning of May when I was in Italy, there were some quite steep climbs, and I spent quite a lot of time in that ratio, and I just didn't think it was optimal. I would have either needed a smaller ring or a bigger cassette, so I opted to go for the bigger cassette for efficiency. So hopefully this will work out better in those scenarios, but everywhere else for 99% of the time I think this is a superior system. But we'll see how it goes with the big cassette and how that shifts. Also maybe there will be an improvement or, well, some change there in either direction. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Then I'll be also testing the YBN chain, hopefully with better drivetrain efficiency and same shifting. And yeah, we'll be looking forward to further updates, mainly from the shift button integration. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting product, and I'll keep you updated about it in the future for sure. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.